Alan and I love books almost as much as running. I did say almost, like we do love running more, obviously. So of course, you probably guessed this because why else would we have started a podcast all about running books? Although I'm not usually into shopping, even if given the chance, I'll visit a running store if I'm in a new place. The same goes for bookstores. So on our trip to Moab to do the very first edition of the Moab Run the Rocks 3-day stage race at the beginning of the year, Alan and I obviously visited the local bookstore, back of Beyond Books. And on the shelf in the running section was a book we had never seen before. Obviously, we had to plan an episode around this new discovery.
It's like a unicorn.
Exactly.
What's this book?
We must review it.
Yep, had to be done. Everybody else was resting up and we were down the bookshop running around going, look at this book, look at this book.
And the bookmarks. We didn't even get to the bookmarks because this is not running bookmarks review. This is just running book reviews. But the bookmarks, we found these really cool bookmarks. Basically, they are sort of advice from and it's like from a something. So I have you have advice from a wolf.
Yep.
Do you want to read that?
My
to
advice
us?
from a wolf says, trust your instincts, be at home in nature, keep your den clean, stand for what you believe, FUR, stay on track, howl with your friends. It's a good one. Be a leader, pack your life with good memories.
Anyway, all that to say that if ever you're in Moab, Utah, you've got to go to Back of Beyond Books. It was a lot of fun. Hi, and welcome to the Running Book Reviews podcast, where we review books written for runners, about runners, and by runners to help you decide if you would like to read the book for yourself. We also hope that listening to us chat about running can help keep you motivated about your own running, or maybe inspire you to try something new. My name is Liz, and with my co-host Alan, we're going to talk about On the Run from the publisher Gestalten. Or Gestalten?
Gestalten or Gestalten?
Oh, well.
You pronounced it Gestalten, so for sure that's not the pronunciation.
Oh, no. Well, and since we don't have anybody here to confirm it,
I think it's German, so I think it'll be Gestalten, but it doesn't matter, does it? Does it really? They're a publisher from Berlin.
Well, it doesn't matter as long as I'm right.
Let me do the book overview, yeah? So
okay.
Tell people we won't worry about the publisher's name too much. This book is a hardcover coffee table book featuring a collection of runs and stories about running from around the world. I guess we call it a coffee table book because it's full of sort of pictures and wonderful pictures, sometimes double-page pictures. Each run is its own little story, so you don't need to read the book from cover to cover. You can just dip in, find a run, or there are some articles, and you can find an article and just read that. But often there are a series of large photos with spectacular scenery associated with the runs. The book has an introduction to running in the first section, and the remainder is sort of divided into 6 sections. They seem to be sort of rough type sections, but they are distances and terrains, city runs, mountain runs, quirky runs, heritage runs, and wild runs. Author bio that we normally do, well, it's hard to do an author bio because it's a whole series of different articles written by different people. It's really a book that is conceptualized and conceived and edited and designed by the publisher, Gestalten.
Except that our friend Nick Butter, who's been on the podcast before, because of his book Running the World, he's actually written a lot of the blurbs, I think.
Yeah, he's written a few of the articles and he has some photograph credits as well, I noticed. Who else are we mentioning? The text in the book, some of the text in the book was also written by a person called Christian Nathler, and there are captions by Anna Southgate. But there are lots of little contributions from lots of people, too numerous to mention probably, in terms of photograph credits and things like that. So what we're going to do for this podcast is we'll sort of talk a bit about the book. But while we're talking about the book, we'll then each pick a run out of each of those 6 categories and talk a little bit about them, why we picked it, why does it stick out, for each section. So we'll go through the sections, and then we'll do just a little snippet, a little sample of each section to give you a flavor of the book.
So section 1, distances and terrains. So for this one, I chose a run that's called the Endure 24. So it's a 24-hour race that's done around 8K loops, and the 8K loops are a gravel road, and there aren't any like really big hills. And Alan is smiling because he just wants to burst out laughing, because like the reason I chose this,
I know why you chose it, because it's 8K loops and it's the same thing over and over again. And it's totally predictable.
It says that it caters to beginners, so you can, this is the kind of thing that a beginner
and
ultra
Liz.
runner, and yeah, exactly. So I'm not a big, I don't know if I'm ever gonna run a real ultra. Like I mean I've run a 50K, but a real ultra, like one where you have to run through the night, I'm not sure I'm ever gonna run one. But if I were to run one, this Endure 24, it looks very appealing to me, because the hills are not serious. You don't have any of this single track with all the rocks and roots to navigate.
And every 8K, it all comes around again.
Exactly. You can actually just like leave your duffel bag on the side of the road, and every 8K, you're going to get to go back to your duffel bag.
Like most people would say, oh, that's boring. And Liz would say, oh, that's great. Oh, it's a shame it's not 5K. It would have been even better. We could have done more loops of all the same stuff.
Hey, when you're running at night, because this is 24 hours, don't forget, when you're running at night, you're not going to see any of the scenery anyway.
It's true.
So, that eliminates like 8 hours of scenery that like you're not going to see anyway. So you won't even notice.
I suspect you might be secretly rather quite good at an endurance 24-hour run, because you have patience to start off nice and easy and then just gradually get into it. I've noticed you sneakily good when the distance gets longer.
Or lucky, because I haven't done like all that many. But so who knows which one it is.
The one I chose was the run from the Endurance Life series, the coastal runs in the UK. In particular, the run in Northumberland on the coast, which finishes at a castle called Bamborough Castle. So you're running up and down. Yeah, you run up and down because you start at the castle, you run down the coast, and then you turn around, you run back up the coast. The English Northumberland coast can be quite wild, so the weather can be a bit variable, but it's absolutely beautiful. And the reason I chose it is I was born relatively near there, probably about 20 miles from there, 15 miles. And I know that the castle where it starts, it's right on the coast. It's like the sea, fine sands, and then this huge castle. So it's really like super, I don't know, memorable, impressionable. And when I was a kid, I kind of took it for granted because it was kind of around the corner.
You figured all the kids in the world like live near a castle.
Now I would sort of love to go there and run that again. So, and you can do different distances, and you don't have to run for 24 hours or do super ultra distances. So I think it would be nice. There's a whole series in the UK done by Endurance Life of coastal routes, but that one in particular really appeals to me.
Yeah, I did see the pictures are spectacular. Looks really nice. I think I just didn't choose that one because of the whole variable weather thing.
Oh, you'd rather run 24 hours through the night, round and round in circles? Okay.
Well,
whatever floats your boat.
If it's not raining and cold, I mean. Okay, on to the next one. So the next section was called City Runs. So for that one, I picked the run in the city in Vietnam. And here we go. Alan can make fun of my pronunciation again. It's Hanoi City Center.
Hanoi.
Oh, okay. Okay, close enough.
It's all
Close
good.
enough. Yeah, you start outside the Kwantan Temple and run around a lake, which sounds fantastic. So actually, the pictures on for this run were actually just the pictures of the city center. And when
Yeah.
you look at the pictures, you're
And it
kind of
looks like a
like,
crazy hustle and bustle.
yeah, you're like, well, I don't want to run there. I might get like run over by a moped because it's
Yeah.
really like a busy city center with all those little like kiosks set up and
Yeah, you
people everywhere.
probably
But
will.
when you no, because when you read the blurb, it actually says that they have designated running paths.
Oh,
Yeah, they have like a dedicated running paths in that city. So and there's a run that's like around a lake. So um
I'm kind of surprised to hear you pick Hanoi because it's, so
oh, is it
seems like
dangerous?
no, it just seems like such a busy, crazy, active place
Yeah, you know what?
and very
Well,
exotic and far away.
I know. Well, the thing is that like all of the cities in this section, I had to pick something, right? So I picked that one because I figured a place that has dedicated running paths has got to have good people and lots of runners. So also there was
Yeah.
a pretty neat thing that they mentioned is that if you run a marathon, you can go to the marathon cafe and have your picture put on the wall, which I thought was like kind of a cool
There's
idea. I
probably not
mean,
much space on the wall though.
no, it's probably just plastered
Yeah.
full of
You have to
photos of
put your
like
picture
random
on top
people.
of somebody else's picture.
I would just want to go there and take a picture of all the pictures that are already there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would come after you, and after you
Hmm.
put your picture on the wall, I'd put my picture on top of yours.
Of course you would.
I don't
Okay,
know. I
so which
seem
one
to
did
be in
you
a
pick?
mean mood for this podcast. I'm being really mean on you. I'm sorry about that. Which one did I pick? Yeah,
Hmm.
I actually picked, and it doesn't really look like a city marathon or a city run. It's not even a marathon. It's a city run. They're not all marathons, are they? They're all
No.
different types of runs. Um, but it was in the city section, so I picked it. Um, it had a sponsor's name on it, but it was called the Drei Zinnen Alpine Run. Well, there you go. It gives the game away because it says it's an Alpine run.
Mm.
Um,
So it's in the Alps.
yeah, but I think Drei Zinnen I think is German for three chimneys or three pillars or something, because it's an area in the Dolomites, which are the mountains in the north of Italy or South Austria, probably northern Italy. Um, and there's a 16K run, and it goes from an alpine town called Sexten, Sexten, and it's a 17K run, and it goes basically up and up and up and up and up into these three mountains that look like they're like three sort of pillars standing in the distance, and it goes up and up and into these mountains. And the reason it appealed to me is because way back in 2014, I ran the Transalpine
I
um,
remember that.
run, which was a multi-day event. And the last day actually finished in this town
Oh,
of
wow.
Sexton. It actually finished in the town. And so we went
Oh.
past these three mountains and we were like, wow, look at those. Wow, wouldn't it be fantastic to get up in amongst those? They're really good. And there was a refuge there. They're like an old Italian refugio, um, which looked like really neat. And there were sort of sheep going along the trail and stuff like that. So I was like really, really impressed by this and really getting super high and motivated. It's probably the end of the 8 days running or whatever it was we did. But
That'll do it too,
so
but
when I
yeah,
saw it in the book and I saw the picture, I thought, I know where that is. I
that's
took
so neat.
photographs of that. So I was
That's
really super motivated to see that. And I think I would like to go back there and go and run, right up into the mountains that I ran past.
Oh wow. Well, so the next section is actually mountain runs. So
Yeah, I kind of cheated because
yeah,
that
because
run didn't look like a city run, but it was in the city run section,
mm,
so I picked it out.
yeah. Okay. Well, you get to pick a second mountain run.
Do you want me to go first because you're going first
Yeah.
all the time, and I'm kind of picking holes in your your choices.
Yep, you could definitely go first. Okay, go ahead. Which
The-
one would you pick in the mountain? So like you are already on a roll because you love this whole mountain business.
yeah, I do.
So
I
now it's
love
the
it.
mountain section. So which one did you pick in the mountains?
Um, this was hard because there lots of them look really good. So
Except like some of them were like closer to home.
yeah, but you don't worry about that. I was I was sort of all of the mountain ones, almost all of them, except for maybe Dragon's Back in Wales, looked pretty rough. I looked too hard. So I didn't pick that. But the one I plumped on eventually was the Blue Mountains in Australia, um,
Okay.
on the west of Sydney. Because I've run there before, although I would really like, I think, to go to Bhutan. And there was a run for the mountains in the mountains of Bhutan. And Bhutan sounds like one of these like weird, wonderful countries to visit. And that might have been good, but I couldn't turn down the Blue Mountains because
Because you
I,
already know what to
yeah, I
expect.
kind of know what I'm going to get, and what I'm going to get is absolutely
Like,
wonderful. If
mm,
you've never been to Australia, then even just stepping into that area in the Blue Mountains it's gobsmacking. There's sort of a plateau, and then there's an escarpment that drops like, I don't know, 1,000 feet, and there's big staircases that go down the side of the escarpment, and you go down into sort of a valley, and you can run along the valley and up the other side. But when you're in these mountain areas in Australia, basically, if you've never been to Australia, 85% of the plant life exists only in Australia. So
and will might kill you, so you better watch out.
no, it doesn't kill you. It's fine. I've done it lots of times and I'm still alive.
Okay.
Um, but the thing is, it's totally foreign. It doesn't smell like a forest somewhere else. It smells sort of a bit piney because it's eucalypts, and um, there are all these funny bushes with different wildflowers that you've never seen before. You would absolutely love it.
Yeah, that
You'd be
sounds really
frightened
cool.
that things are going to kill you.
But only if it
Australians
moves by
only
itself.
say that to keep all the riffraff out. I think it's don't come here, mate. The animals will kill you. They don't.
Uh,
The Australians even have like a mythology, which they call the drop bear. You can look it up on YouTube. Look up drop bear on YouTube. There are even articles like nature articles about the drop bear, which is like this carnivorous koala that hangs in the trees and drops on you as you walk underneath and bites you. So,
oh.
and everybody goes, "Oh yeah, I can't go there. The drop bears will get me." But it's entirely fictitious,
Oh.
made up by Australians. But
Oh no.
everybody mentions it when you go there. Oh, drop bears. They like to have a bit of a joke at your expense. To the extent that people have made like videos about them and
And how
articles.
how to avoid them and where
Yeah,
not to
yeah.
go
What you
and
do if you get bitten by one and all this. They don't
and then all
exist.
these oh my gosh.
There
Okay.
are there
Well,
are lots of poisonous things, but you never see them really, hardly,
hmm.
mostly.
I would really like to see, all the like cool plants that are
Yeah,
nowhere
I think
else. And
you would absolutely adore it. Even though in your head you're thinking, oh, there'll be a spider or a snake or something. Well, no, if you're not the first one in the morning down the trail, there are going to be no things hanging around. They've all scuttled off. They're more frightened of you than you should be of them. Anyway,
okay,
back to the Blue
that's fair.
Mountains. So
Yeah.
um, I have done a run through there, called the 6 Foot Track Marathon, which goes from Katoomba down the escarpment through the valleys in the Blue Mountains, and eventually finishes at a magnificent place called Jenolan Caves, which has these huge crystal caves, which then you can visit at the end of your run if you've got any energy left.
That
Absolutely
sounds
magical
really
part
nice.
part of countryside. So
That's
I would pick that one. Sorry
okay.
for going on.
Hmm. No, it just means that it must be that wonderful. So yeah, I've never been to the Blue Mountains. but I've seen many pictures of Banff National Park. And so when I saw that in the book, and also because it's in Canada, and this is not a race though, it was just they mentioned a 20K loop near the Sulphur Mountain, and the spectacular view. And obviously they had, one of those spectacular photos that you always see with like the mountains, and it's like a little misty and it looks magical and the water is like turquoise. So I picked that one as
But
a
the
run that
water
I'd like to.
is turquoise, isn't it?
Mhm.
And you and I have actually run in Banff, haven't we? Didn't we stop?
We
We
stopped and we
stopped for a
hiked like a
break in
tiny,
Banff.
yeah.
Yeah,
And I think like we would have gone to Lake Louise if it wasn't for the fact that it's like it was such a tourist hotspot, and
yeah. You
there
couldn't
was
get
like a lineup.
parked.
Yeah, I think there
Yeah,
was a lineup of cars to go there or something. And because we were
yeah.
just like driving through, we thought, oh no, we're gonna lose way too much time if we go there. But I mean, every time I see photos, they're like spectacular. Um,
It's pretty nice.
yeah. Yeah, and in
But
Canada,
but
so
but
I
but
figured
also in the mountain run section they had uh
Midnight Sun
a
Marathon.
a volcano in Nicaragua. Oh
Oh,
man, how cool would that be? A live volcano running on the rim of a live volcano in Nicaragua. They have
I think it's the fact that it was live that kind of didn't make me pick that one. I'm like, I don't know. But I guess
yeah,
that would be a reason why you'd pick it. It would
yeah.
stand out. So actually
It's
there's
that's it.
one run that stood out. It was the Midnight Sun Marathon,
Oh
uh,
yes.
which is a run in
Tromsø.
Tromsø, Norway,
Yeah.
which actually it stuck out because of Tromsø, Norway, and because we interviewed Hillary Allen, who had her
Yes.
accident there.
She did the sky run there and fell, didn't
Yeah,
she?
yeah. But so this is a marathon that they hold at midnight, during a time of the year when like the sun just doesn't go down. So you're
Yeah.
basically running in daylight, but it's midnight.
Yeah, and
Um,
you're above the Arctic Circle, so that's
yeah,
cool. And
yep,
yeah,
yep.
perpetual daylight.
Yeah, I don't know if I would do it because, if I'm gonna go travel somewhere like the Arctic is maybe not the place I want to go, like, because it's kind of
No,
cold.
no, you tend to be a warm bird.
um, yeah, I'm kind of like a warm weather lover, even though, I was like born and raised in Canada. So you think I'm like this hardy, hardy Canadian
Yeah.
walking around in my t-shirt in -20, but like actually no, I just like I live in Canada and I just know how to dress for the weather. So I wear like 3 long sleeves in the winter, like at all times.
We were out this morning. We were out running this morning. And it was quite warm this morning, and we got back from our run, and I said, "Oh, look, I'm completely drenched. My top's drenched, and my shorts are all drenched in sweat.
I
I
was
need to
drenched
get changed." And
too.
you're going, "Oh, look, I've got a little patch of tiny little patch of sweat." Like, oh God, I almost melted. And she's got like one little complaining about one little patch of sweat.
That's so not
Don't
true.
know how you do it.
I had a whole like half of my singlet was wet. Okay, the other half was dry, but
Okay, so you fancy going and running in the Arctic Circle, eh?
Well, it looks really nice. Like the photos were really nice, and
Yeah.
it's kind of different and special, to
Yeah, it
be
would be.
in a place like that where it's midnight and it's complete daylight. So
Maybe the
I don't know.
publishers of the book are going to hear all this and then invite us to go to all of these events that we're mentioning. That would be
Oh,
cool.
that would be cool. We'll have to send them the podcast.
For sure.
so
Okay, moving on.
so
Quirky Runs.
yeah, in case that wasn't quirky enough. I mean, there's a lot of quirky runs. So they have this is where they have like rifle runs, beer lovers marathons, Spartan racing. But the one that I don't know if it belongs in the quirky runs, but this one captured my imagination was the Grand to Grand Ultra.
Yeah, I
So
thought you'd mention that.
yeah,
We were
that's the
talking about it
one.
while we were reading the book, and I thought, ooh, she's into that.
Yeah. So this is 170 miles in 6 stages over 7 days. And you run from the Grand Canyon North Rim to the summit of the Grand Staircase in Utah. I mean, it looks spectacular. Like it's the red rocks that we saw when we were in Moab,
Yeah,
and like that sort of, oh my gosh, the
you've had a taste
pictures.
of it.
Yeah, and the desert. And I don't know. It actually, this run sounds pretty hard because I think you have to carry all your own supplies for the 7 days. Or I might have misread that, but like I think you do have to carry a pack with a lot of things.
We probably have to carry a lot of water, I would imagine, because it's probably warm.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, so I think they require you to be able to carry, I don't know, a liter and a half or something. But I mean, there are 8 stations, but the days are really long. So it's a pretty hard run, but I do like that format, the stages, so you get to sleep at night, not run through the night.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm with you. Yeah,
yeah.
running through the night is okay for one night.
Yeah, the whole hallucinations and everything that people get
It's
when they run through the night. Like
it's
I
no
just
fun.
I don't know if I want to put myself through that.
No.
Maybe I'm just soft, you know? But this run looks spectacular. The photos were just amazing. Um, so that is the one that I would pick as the one to do.
Hmm.
But I have to say that like all of the other ones, including they had another Arctic run, which I would say no way. And they had
Is
a
that the
rifle run.
6633 Ultra?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fairly badass, I think.
It is. I'd heard of this the 6633 Ultra, but I think I never really realized what it really was until I read this book. Um,
Yeah.
I
It's
thought it
basically a
was
dog sled race, but you don't have any dogs and you have to pull the
mm-mm.
sled.
Mm-hmm. And you are responsible for your own cat. There are no aid
Yeah.
stations for the
Yeah, you
whole.
just put up
You
a
just
tent and
Yep.
tent down with a heavy duty sleeping bag and keep moving.
Yeah, and so then that means your water comes from probably the snow that you're melting
Yeah,
with
I
your
remember
supplies.
I remember seeing a video on it and they said,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, this person who's out there, they haven't moved for a while because everybody has a satellite uplink detector on them so they can check on people." They said, "Oh, they haven't moved for a while. We better go out and check on them." So they sent somebody out on a ski-doo and eventually found them, and they were just so tired they were just sleeping for extra hours. So they were just there asleep in a tent was had snow over it, and they just said, "Oh no, they're just sleeping. They're completely exhausted," and then they just drove away again and left them. It
Oh
looked
my
pretty tough.
goodness. Yeah.
So I don't think I'm putting that on the list, but the photographs are incredibly good. Yeah, there's lots and lots of stuff. Um, the one that appeals in terms of sort of interest that I might do one day, probably not in one go, would be the Bob Graham Round in the Lake District in the UK, because I have some friends who live near there and I could maybe stay there and go and do little sections of the run from time to time. Um,
Okay.
the trouble with the Bob Graham Round in the Lake District is it's fantastic. To get qualified, you're supposed to do it in 24 hours. I probably wouldn't be able to do that. It's too tough. It's fantastic if the weather's good.
Mm-hmm.
But you probably have a 75% chance of having like
Bad. Like,
rain or
yeah.
fog or
Actually, Jeff Peltier, who's a YouTuber that we both follow,
yeah.
you follow him too, I think.
Mm-hmm.
He did a video on his Bob Graham round, and it was this year, and it was dry. So he said that he had it easy because it was like it hadn't
Yeah, he's a
really
lucky
rained that
boy.
much when he went.
Yeah,
Um, he said that usually there's like knee-high mud in certain sections and stuff. And so he
yeah.
actually ended up running like the under 24 hours. I don't know by how much, but he ended up running it.
It's a pretty cool achievement. You have to do 42 peaks,
Yeah.
quite a
Yeah.
distance. So I
So
didn't pick that. So that's a very long-winded way of saying I didn't choose that. Um,
that you wouldn't do it
the
unless
the
it was
one
broken up into sections.
the one I chose from the quirky weird runs was the Medoc Marathon, the Marathon of Medoc, which is a standard marathon race in France, in the Bordeaux region. Well, it's the Medoc wine region, but it's the wackiest marathon party that you could ever participate in. Basically, in Medoc, the marathon, something like 90% of the participants, and they usually have, I don't know, numbers of thousands of participants, 90% are in fancy dress. So everybody
Oh,
wears
I saw that. Okay.
some kind
Yeah, I
of
saw that.
costume. And because you're running through the Medoc region, which is, not to put too fine a point on it, probably one of the finest wine regions anywhere in the world. The best wines from France, I think, come out of the Medoc area. All of the drink stations have wine to taste, and things like foie gras in the in the
Oh, that just sounds like you're doing
at
like
the
a
aid
trail
station.
race.
So you're doing like, yeah, it sounds a bit like a trail race, but it's basically a drunken party. Nobody
Okay.
goes at it hard. Everybody's going in fancy dress.
Hmm.
Basically, it's
No
I
one's
think
running under 3 hours.
nobody's running under 3 hours. This is not a sub 3 hour marathon race. Is
Okay.
but in terms of the amount of fun that you would have, I think
Hmm.
for a marathon, it would just be just like so hyped in terms of how much good fun could be available. So I think that's something I'd like to do. I know our coach Bill, he often mentions the Medoc Marathon. I think he has ambitions to go out
Oh,
there and do it. You could
he,
imagine him doing it. He gets into
yeah,
that kind of stuff.
it's probably on his bucket list, I'm
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
So that was my choice.
Okay. Okay, so on to heritage runs. For heritage runs, I picked the Great Wall Marathon in China.
Ah, so did
So,
I.
oh wow. So I don't know if I really picked it for, I mean, I think it looks really spectacular from like up on the wall where you could look all around. Um, but it's also interesting that they don't let only Chinese nationals can sign up just for the race. Everybody else has to sign up for a package that includes 6 to 7 days of touring. And
Okay.
I thought that's pretty cool because,
You get
like,
a
if you're
free
gonna
tour
go
of
somewhere,
China.
yeah, exactly. If you're gonna go so far for a race, like you go and you run the Great Wall Marathon, and then they take you for tours of other places that are around. I thought that was kind of a neat thing. I guess you just do it for fun and experience, and not for
It looks like an extremely tough marathon. So you'd have to, again, this is not our sub 3 attempt, Liz.
mm-mm.
Um, all the steps. It's not
Yeah,
the wall is not like flat at all.
no. It looks like you really have to train for this, but more so that your DOMS after the race is not going to be so
Gonna
severe
be,
that like you can't get up.
yeah, it's gonna be very bad.
Yeah. So yeah, it looks like there's a lot of stairs. So you'd
Yeah.
probably have to do stair workouts.
Given that you've already chosen the Great Wall and I chose it too, I would switch quickly to, I'd come and be your, I don't know, your aid station helper at the Great Wall, and then I'd go instead probably to the Angkor Wat run in Cambodia, which goes through the National Heritage Site of the temples, ancient Cambodian
Oh,
temples.
okay.
That looks quite epic.
Okay.
It looks like, something out of Raiders of the Lost Ark, basically, ancient temples, that kind of stuff in Cambodia. Probably the humidity would be terrible.
Not that bad for me, I guess.
But yeah, you could come along and give me drinks.
Yes. I'll make
Stuff
sure
ice
that
down the back of my shirt.
yeah. Yeah, I saw Courtney DeWalter does that when she was running, was it Western States, the one that she
Yeah,
ran
Western
before
States,
UTMB?
well, Hard Rock was the one before
Oh,
UTMB,
Hard
but
Rock. Hard Rock was the one that was hot, I think.
one of them was very hot and everybody was getting iced. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that looks
I
incredibly
because
uncomfortable to have a big
yeah,
bag of
everybody was
ice draped around your neck.
no, but she like they were dumping it in her. She had her Solomon vest, and they were
Okay,
dumping
they
it
were
in
just
the
dumping
back
it
of
in
her
a
vest.
vest.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. So I would do that for you. You'd have to wear your Solomon vest, and I could
yeah,
dump some ice cubes in the back to keep you cool.
yeah. Maybe I won't go there after all.
Come on, we have like we have the advantage because now we know what the pros do.
Yeah, run like a pro.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Even if
Okay,
you're not
so
pro.
So that's
Um,
heritage runs. Anything else took your fancy in heritage runs? There's some great stuff there.
yeah, I didn't really mark anything else down. They all looked very kind of like remote and
Yeah,
like places
yeah.
that like I
You might never come
didn't.
back from.
Well, I don't know. Like they just seemed like very, very far remote, and that I wasn't really sure if safe.
Yeah, I like the
I
look.
like.
Yeah, I like the look of the Baga Temple Marathon, but it's in Myanmar, and I don't know if Myanmar's like Burma. I don't like it's super safe at the moment. So
Because this book was published
a few years
in,
ago,
yeah, I think was it 2017 or 2019?
don't know. I've got
Um,
my copy here. I'll just have a quick
let
check if
me.
you like.
It says published by Gestalten Berlin 2021. So
Oh,
actually
that's not so
not that
bad.
long ago. For some reason I thought that it was an older book than that. But yeah, I still I guess like you'd have to look if you know if it's okay to go. I think also a lot of places in the world they're maybe safe for men traveling alone, but maybe not for like women traveling alone. So, there's always
Yeah, I
that.
don't
I
know.
don't know. I kind of worry about these things. I'm just very much a homebody.
We don't have to travel
So,
alone. You can go with your husband.
yeah, that's true. I could. Yeah. I don't know. I wouldn't want to be like, I want to go here. And then it turns out to be not safe and it was my fault.
I'm sure he would check and we wouldn't allow you to go if it was a problem. I think you
You're
overthink
probably
these things
right.
sometimes, Liz.
I think I do. I think
Yeah.
I do. Anyway, so speaking of wild, so the next section is wild runs. And
Yeah.
I actually so I picked one that is not really wild,
There's lots
but
and lots of runs in this section. So
yeah.
what did you choose then?
Okay, so I chose like one that is very common, I guess. I chose UTMB, but not really because I would want to do
Okay.
UTMB the race,
Hmm.
but more because I'd want to do the UTMB course, but more as a like a multi-day
Yeah.
like kind of run during the day so you
Hmm.
could see all the scenery, and then they
Yeah.
have these little auberges like along
Yeah.
the way where
Yeah,
you
it's
can
fun.
stay. Yeah, so I would want to do something like that. So that's why I chose UTMB, but not really to run like UTMB the way that it's run.
But to just
Um,
run the trail, basically.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I did back in 2018, I did the OCC, which is the 56K run in the UTMB weekend. So one, I would endorse your choice because it's absolutely fantastic, but I've kind of already done that. So
Hmm.
there's so
So
many
you
other
didn't
things
pick
to
that one.
choose. Yeah, there's so many other things to choose, so I didn't
I
pick
was
it.
a little bit inspired also by the fact that like the UTMB was going on, I
Just
think, when
been
I was,
just been on.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, I have to say though, if you can run during the UTMB weekend in Chamonix, it has a certain special atmosphere. You know, it's a really big vibe.
hmm
It's
yeah,
it's
it
really the
looks,
Super Bowl in terms of the number of people for trail running. Has the
yeah.
most people in
Yeah,
terms
I
of
mean, I
crowds.
was looking at the live feed at the finish line, and even during the night, they don't have any announcers saying anything, but they still have the live feed, so you could see like people coming in from the different race distances, and there are crowds of people just like cheering people in even during the night, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, so I didn't pick that.
Okay, what
I
did you
I,
pick?
I picked the Big Five marathon. The Big Five marathon is a marathon that, and I think you can do a half if you're not up for it, but um, it's a race that is in South Africa at a place called Entabeni Game Reserve in Limpopo province in South Africa, and
Oh,
the
with
the
all the
idea the idea of the Big Five marathon is the Big Five stands for the Big Five animals. So the Big Five, I think, are lion, leopards, rhinos, elephants, and Cape buffaloes.
Oh yeah.
So the big five animals. And the idea is you run through this game reserve and all these animals are in there and there are no fences. You're basically running in the area of these animals. And, you're going to see giraffes and other things as well.
Hmm.
I think they have security people who have rifles who stand around just in case something
Hmm.
happens. You would hope that it doesn't, but you get to run in a game reserve. You can be the prey for these big five animals. So yeah,
Yeah,
it just
seeing a
sounds.
lion just sounds really amazing because they're just like big cats.
I think it would just feel great to do that.
Hmm.
Um,
It's true. The pictures were really nice
I did
too.
have a backup choice for the wild runs,
Oh,
which was
okay.
which was the Tenzing Hillary Everest Marathon, which always takes place on May the 29th, because that's the commemorative date for when Everest was first climbed in 1953 by Hillary and Sherpa Tenzing, Edmund
Oh,
Hillary. A couple of cool things about that is it's in the Himalayas. It starts at the Everest base camp. So you've got to arrive early, get acclimatized to the altitude, go up to the base camp, spend some time at the base camp so you can breathe, and then you run down. So it's kind of downhill and the air's getting better and better as you go down. So it'll be tough, but at least it's helping you from that point of view. But you actually start at 5,350 meters of altitude. So that's, you
wow.
might have to jog very slowly to begin with. And
Yeah.
then you eventually descend and you arrive in a little town called Namche Bazaar. And Namche Bazaar was where we based
Yeah, you
ourselves
guys
for
were
a few
there.
days when we were doing the Manaslu Trail Race,
Hmm.
which looks like it's sort of built in a part of a bowl of the mountains. It looks like something out of a Tolkien movie, out of Lord of the Rings or something. It's an absolutely amazing place. So that would be kind of fun, I think, to do that.
Sounds good. So that's pretty much that was the last section of the book.
Yeah,
So I guess do you want to give your overall opinion about the book?
I think just to emphasize that it's a coffee table book, so it has little bits of writing about the runs, several paragraphs and loads of photographs.
Hmm.
So I think it's a great book to get inspired. So if you read it, you go, "Ooh, look at that!
Yeah.
Wow, look at those mountains! Oh, wow, look at that city!" Um, or you read a little blurb where somebody else is saying that, um,
Hmm. And
which
if you
which
have
is
like running friends that come over sometimes, like I guess it's a great
mm,
conversation starter,
yeah,
you know? Or you can plan, your next adventure.
that's exactly what I said in my opinions. It's great material to dream a little bit and maybe plan your next adventure. Right? It might just trigger an adventure that you've got in your mind rather than see something in the book. You might not see something in the book and say, "I want to do that thing," but
Hmm.
because you see these things, you go, "Oh, I've always been thinking of going somewhere.
Hmm.
Now I'm going to plan to go." So it's a great book to just have around, lying around, and just dip into it. Just pick it up, when you're waiting for your Netflix to start or whatever. Just pick it up and just open it up and go, "Ooh, that looks nice." Um, the probably one thing that I haven't said in terms of the overview, though, that hasn't come up, is there are also some articles. Every so often, there's an article about
Hmm.
something in running. People who've done the running for people with injuries, or people who've done running for people who are deprived or come from poor backgrounds, or people who've done
Or
big
like
mountain big
interesting
mountain
running
running.
clubs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that in itself is like another aspect to the book, which is quite nice.
Yeah, there was a pretty inspirational guy that I came across who
Was it the guy with cerebral palsy?
exactly,
Yeah, I
yes.
thought
And
you were
I'm
going to say that.
looking but that's the thing. That's why I think that I had the impression that the book was published a while back, because I went on his Instagram and he's no longer active in the whole promoting running space. And one of his posts said something like, I don't know, I'm moving on or something. So yeah, it was yeah, that's he was like very inspiring, because he's got a genetic disorder, and most people with cerebral palsy are in wheelchairs. Like
Yep.
it's like the same disease that the Hoyt family, the father and son that would do
Yes.
triathlon together. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. The guy's
That
called Jushi Gallegos. And one of the things that he did get was he got a professional contract from Nike at one
mhm.
stage,
Yep.
just to
Yeah,
sort
the
of
photos
promote
have
running
him.
at his level, which was quite
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. So I mean, I thought that was amazing, because you don't you don't see people with cerebral palsy doing sports, and he's like pretty much beat all odds, and I thought that was amazing. And I thought, wow, like he must have had to work so hard just to preserve any sort of muscle function and muscle
Yeah.
mass. So I mean, I thought that was pretty inspiring.
There
But
was,
there are other stories.
yeah, there's an article about a running club that some people had started in the ghetto in Rio, where,
Mm-hmm.
they're trying to reclaim the community for the people rather than the gangs and what have you,
Mm-hmm.
which is pretty
Yes.
cool.
Yeah, so there are some of those things. We didn't really touch on those because we were just telling you about the runs, but yeah, those stories are sort of sprinkled into each section as
Yeah.
well.
And they help the inspiration. You go,
Mm-hmm.
wow, that's inspiring. And now look at that run. And you're inspired to
Yeah.
go to the run.
Yeah, exactly. Or if you think it's too hard, then you'll have been inspired by the previous story, and you'll be like, well, maybe it's not that hard. Maybe I could still do it even if it's hard.
Do you think they missed anything in the book?
It's hard to say, because we had another book that was not it was also kind of a coffee table book full of different runs, and I feel like these runs were completely different from those ones.
Mm-hmm.
um I just think there's probably so many runs out there. I mean, did they miss anything? Well, yeah, probably. But I mean, you're bound to miss something, right?
Yeah. They
Because
never focused on like the big six, like the Boston, New York. They never focused on
yeah,
those too much.
no.
They probably thought, well, everybody knows about those.
Yeah, exactly. And that's like one example, but I mean, there are so many runs that are out there. So I guess what they did was they tried to go and find those little gems that maybe people don't know as much about, and highlight those.
In the Quirky Runs, there was a weird, very weird run, which was something that some people in Sweden had developed, where they would run across an archipelago, so a series of islands. So they'd run across the island, then swim to the next island, then run across the next
Oh
island,
yes, I
then
saw
swim to the
that.
next island. I think it was called the Otillo Swim Run, which is sort of a race between two towns that, as usual, some two guys put together for a bet or something,
Hmm.
probably some
And so
alcohol
the thing
involved.
is, you have to take care of your own running shoes while you're swimming. I think they have to put it in they have to somehow keep their running shoes dry on their own, because they have to
Yeah.
bring them over to the next island.
Yeah. And some of the
So
islands are uninhabited. So you arrive at the island, there are no trails or anything on the island. You got to get across the island and then run across the others, swim across the other side. Apparently, it started a whole series of swim runs like this. There's a whole bunch of them around the world now. But that sounded the story of it was pretty neat. I don't think I would like to swim in the ocean off the coast of Sweden though.
hmm. Yeah,
Cold.
I'm not sure. Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, probably. I'd much rather just run.
Okay, so there we have it.
Um,
You wanna do your opinions? You kind of chipped in, but you didn't
yeah, I
actually
think
give me.
like we pretty much have the same ones.
All right.
really loved the layout of it with the pictures, and that's like a thick glossy paper with like full color photos. So presentation is just beautiful. And yeah, again, like I read the book cover to cover, but you really don't have to read the book cover to cover because one section doesn't necessarily lead into the next at all. So that's really a preference. You could just have it there and dip in. And I think Alan did exactly that, right? You didn't read the book cover to cover. You read it like not in order at all.
Yeah, I read it all out of sequence, and then I had to make some notes. So then I had to go back through it and start at the front and work through to the back in order to get some notes. But yeah, to begin with, I just started going, okay, what's interesting? Ooh, look at that. And just started reading the section, and then I just sort of dip in and out, and it's perfectly okay like that.
Yeah, I think even, I'm not really all that adventurous, but I do love seeing spectacular scenery, and I like learning about, different runs and different things that are out there, even if like I might not necessarily want to do it myself. But I thought it was a great book. I loved learning about the Arctic 6633. It just makes it that much more spectacular than I thought it was. I figured, I mean, I've worked up north. So, I was like, oh, okay, well, it's a marathon up north or something, or it's an ultra that's up north.
Yeah.
And I know what it's like to run up north in, 3 pairs of tights and whatever else you need. Like you basically have to cover all your skin because if the wind blows, like it's going to be frostbitten in, under 30 seconds. So I was like, oh, well, that's, it's great that people want to do it, but like, that's not for me. But then when I really read what it's about and that you have to pull all your own supplies, and I mean, wow, it's amazing. It's amazing what they achieve. Like these,
incredible.
And if you see the photos, you see how many people there are participating. I mean, it's spectacular. So, yeah, I learned
It's
a lot.
impressive how many crazy people there are in the world.
Well, I didn't want to say it that way.
Joke.
Adventurous.
Yes,
They're
absolutely.
just adventurous.
Use the right language, Alan. Adventurous entrepreneurial people.
Yes. And
enterprising.
I actually liked that there was a mix of like the crazy races and then the like doable ones, that you think that you might do one day, or that are, just, you're running a 20K run in a spectacular trail, let's say.
Yeah.
Not necessarily an event, but yeah, it was a good mix of everything. And I think that what they also did well was that they pretty much included all the continents. Like there was at least one thing on every continent, I think. So, in North America, there were a few. There was even a few from Australia, Africa. So
not so many in South America, I would say, but there was Amazon Jungle Run.
Yeah, so I think they did a good job.
I think there's so many great runs. You could probably make a book like this every few years.
You could, and even different themes. You could probably do a whole book like this just on big city marathons.
I have a coffee table book that I got given a few years ago just on sky runs. So maybe we should.
Oh, wow.
Maybe we should do a podcast on that at some stage. And that's for another day.
That's for another day. Yeah. Okay.
Possible interesting Christmas present for your running family member?
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, it's a bit early to talk about Christmas, but yes, definitely. If you're only listening to this episode around Christmas, then this could be one of those gifts that, people don't buy for themselves, but they'll be, really happy to have.
And if you're only listening to this around Christmas, what are you doing? Come on, keep up with the podcast. So, thank you for listening to another episode of Running Book Reviews. A big thank you to the publisher Gestalten Berlin for providing review copies of the book. If you'd like to leave us feedback about how we can improve the podcast, or you want to suggest a book for further review in a future episode, please leave us a comment on social media. We are Running Book Reviews on Facebook and Instagram, and on Twitter we are reviews_running. And on Threads, I can't remember what we are. I suspect we're Running Book Reviews.
I think so.
Sure.
I think we're Running Book Reviews on Threads.
Yeah, please, because that's the same as Instagram, right? Please also follow us on social media to find out about new episodes when they're released, or you can just subscribe to the podcast on your favorite streaming platform. If you've been listening for a while, or if you've just started listening, in fact, and you're wondering how you can help us out, there are a few ways. We really need to get the word out, so if you're enjoying the podcast, spread the word. Tell your friends about us, share a link, send your favorite episode to a running partner that you know. Help us get the word out about our podcast. Please leave us a review on Apple Podcast or Spotify. You can do that at 5 stars on Spotify, or on Apple Podcasts you can actually do a written review. We really appreciate those. If you haven't done that yet and you're still listening to the podcast, please try and do that if those are your platforms. Also, we're on a platform called Buy Me a Coffee. You can go to the platform Buy Me a Coffee and just look up Running Book Reviews, and there you can find a whole lot of little bits and pieces that we've added around running, outtakes, and other things that are happening in our lives. In particular, attempts we've made to try and run under 3 hours for a marathon. You don't have to buy us a coffee. There's an option to do that if you want, but all the articles are free to access. And that's all for today from Running Book Reviews.
Bye.
Bye.